I'm about to introduce a unique person to you. As I mean, all the interviews are going to be with unique individuals and leaders in companies. The reason that I'm saying Rick is unique is that this is one of three people, not the stereotypical perfect leaders in any ways. They came into a really difficult situation without knowing anything about business ownership. Everything was new to them and have built a really phenomenal company to the point, and you're going to hear this fairly early on in the interview, that consultants who are paid to find mistakes because they're paid to help businesses are having a hard time finding mistakes with this company. They're measuring it and saying, you guys are doing everything right. They've built a truly unique company. And that is because, and you'll hear this, they've come together and created culture and focused on the right things in order to do everything to the best of their abilities. Again, Rick was a youthful, energetic sales guy who knew sales and came in and was the first kind of head of this Three Amigos group. But they've shared leadership roles around, and they've found this balance where it's not one person making all decisions. It's three people working really uniquely together, and that is a unique situation. I don't hear about situations like that very often. So pay attention. Enjoy this interview. I'm positive you will pick up some really interesting things, and hopefully it'll challenge some ideas that you have about leadership and community building in culture. All right, welcome to this week's episode. I'm really excited to have Rick Hayes with me. Two of the Three Amigos now have done a podcast episode with me, an interview. Sean Lavin, feel free to go back and listen to that interview. That was one of our first interviews. Rick's been kind enough to do another one with me. And Aircom, maybe I'll just hand it over to you right away, Rick. Tell me about where Aircom is right now. Brag on it a little bit. You guys have done some really cool things in some really interesting ways. Feel free to brag.
Well, thank you for having me, number one. Aircom, it's tough for me not to brag about Aircom because I am so proud of what we have created with the Amigos, and we have something called the Aircom Way, which is how we basically operate Aircom. And Traits has been a big part of building that Aircom Way as well. And obviously, we can kind of get into that a little bit later. But Sean, Corey, and Rick, as you said, known as the Three Amigos. And this is a term that was given to us by our, 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 our employees. It's a term of endearment, which is kind of neat, you know. It's not something that we came up with. But where we are today, again, I'm very proud of where we are today because you go and build a company. You want to build a company so that it's successful. You've got good people, you've got good culture, you've got good processes, all of that sort of thing. And sometimes, Sean likes to drag us into different types of, uh, forums or business execution. What do you call those things? When you summits and things like that. So we were out at one just last year in Banff and Kananaskis. And part of the process is, you get to plug in with a bunch of other business leaders and folks that are trying to improve on their business. And part of the hosting of this is to, try to get in and see if you can look under the hood of these different businesses that are coming to these summits. And we actually took that opportunity to have someone look under the hood of Aircom, and it's again, it's surprising to me sometimes, but I'm very proud of this. But they look at your business and you go through all the different levels of business and how you're doing things and how you're executing, and they came back with, "Wow, this has never happened before. We honestly do not have anything that we can suggest you guys working on to improve." And that just blows me away. I'm so thankful for Corey and Sean and the way we have operated and built Aircom to where it is today, which is just, it's amazing to me.
It's one thing to be told, hey, you're doing really well, like daily when you're working or something. It's a completely different thing when a business is trying to get your business to try to consult with you and go, hey, we're going to show you all the problems that we can fix, and they can't find a problem. What specifically
Mhm.
were they looking at? Do you know some of the metrics that they were looking at?
Yeah, they look at whether or not you're communicating with your people. If you have processes in place that help your people do the job the right way every single time. We're an ISO 9001 2015 company, so there's are certain metrics that are already built into Aircom, or we've built into Aircom. But are you getting feedback from your folks? Are you giving them the opportunity to give you feedback? Um, does everybody in the company know where you're driving the company? We have core values at Aircom, and we speak of those core values every single day. This is something that is referenced all the time. And one of the really neat things that we do, which kind of helps build the business execution of every day doing this. We meet on a quarterly basis with our people. We have a quarterly general meeting, and instead of Sean sitting there and talking for 45 minutes straight, I suggested to him one day, why don't we take some of our core value cards and pause every so often in our presentation, because we share a lot to our employees, and pause and read some of the core value cards. And what the core value cards are is at any given time, when you recognize one of your people, whether it's one of your direct reports, whether it's someone that you report to, whether it's somebody in a different department altogether, if they've done something that you've recognized that fits excellence, family, dedication, or drive, these are the four things. You can write on a little cue card what they did. Why is what they did meet the dedication, for example? Maybe they came in on their own time and got something done, over the weekend, or something special and extraordinary as far as your day to day. But we share those stories. And then Sean has a wad of these cue cards that we cannot get through all that. Like, just there's just too many, because people are willing to promote other people within the company. And you can sign it. You don't have to sign it, but it's a really neat little touch. But to me, that's creating the culture where people are comfortable um, praising their colleagues, and we openly talk about them, and we bring them to our people in the meetings.
Culture is something that is spoken of wherever you go. When it comes to business, culture is going to be discussed. And we're going to dive deeper into this over the next, whatever, 30, 45 minutes, however long it takes. But something that jumps out to me about that is that I think that there's this idea that you can either do culture well or you can do business well. Like do the business well, and culture is going to suffer, and that's okay. Or when the business has been hopping and it'll slow down a bit, but build that culture up. And I go, I don't think you have to separate them. And in Aircom is a really good example of a company that does really well as a business. It's very efficient as a business, and the culture is really strong. Go back now, talk about kind of that purchase, or even before the purchase, because you were working before the purchase, how the three
Mhm.
amigos purchased this business, and where it was at that point in time.
Very, very interesting that you comment on culture. Richard Branson, the owner of Virgin products, Virgin cell phones, Virgin Airlines, all that sort of thing. I've read a number of his books, and because he's very much a self-made person, he's not an educated person. But one of the lines in one of his books, it says, "Never buy a company with bad culture, because it's way too hard to change." And that resonated with me, because here I am. I like you said, I started at Aircom 23 years ago, started as a salesperson, and um, kind of worked my way up. But I used to have these conversations with the old owner about culture. And I knew the culture was not good. It wasn't good culture. And his comment one time was, well, if you keep saying the culture's bad, the culture's going to be bad. And I just, it's like, wow, if you don't recognize that we struggle with culture, it'll never get better. And you're absolutely right. I think Aircom is a great example of where you can have great business and great culture all in one, but it takes a long time to create. And so going back to the very beginning when I started at Aircom, I really didn't have any intentions of staying at Aircom. I wanted to, I'm an instrumentation journeyman by background, worked in the field. I had a personal situation in my own personal life that really I wanted to change what I was doing, and I needed to make a lot of money so that my wife can stay home permanently. And so sales was a way that you don't have a ceiling in a lot of cases. And the harder you work, the more success you see, typically the more money you make. And I'm very generalizing there, but that's where I started at Aircom was in sales. And I didn't have any sales experience. Uh, I took a massive pay cut to come to Aircom, and I just figured, you know what? Here's this guy that just hired me. He's got 30 some odd years experience in sales. If I can beat this guy in every uh, metric that we measure sales in, then I'm doing okay and I can build business. And if I can kick that door in 200 kilometers into the bush where people don't want to see the sales guy, but you got the old school sales guy, you got a box of donuts and you go in there with brochures and you try to forge a relationship with these folks. And I was successful doing it, and I really did build business. And the purpose of this, again, I just wanted to prove it to myself that I could build business. If I go out there and I can sell, well, that means if I want to start my own company, I can sell my own company and I can, I'm a very hard worker when I want to be a very hard worker. And I put in many, many, many hours. And just fast forward, like I basically gave the old owner, I said, I'm gonna give you 5 years. I'm gonna stick to that 5 years. And that's where the intention of staying at Aircom wasn't really there. I was going to leave, and I figured 5 years would give me enough seed money to buy my own, or build my own company, start my own company, and also the experience of just working through things. And as it turns out, I decided I lived up in Edmonton. I wanted to move down to Calgary because Calgary, a lot of decision makers are down in Calgary. So I wanted to be in that world if I'm going to start my own company. And then as soon as I moved down here, I invited the old owner to come visit and see the Okotoks Aircom office where I live in Okotoks. And yeah, that's when I told him it's like I want to buy your company. And he was floored. And it's like, wow, really? I'm like, yeah. And he says, you know what? Uh, 2 years? Because he was, 62 years old. Give me 2 years and I'll be ready to be retiring. Get your affairs in order and away you go. And it's like, awesome, great. And so, my little plan was starting to work out. Unfortunately, 4 years after that, we lost Colin. Colin, the old owner of Aircom. He passed away suddenly in his sleep. I lost a friend in business. I lost my boss. I lost the opportunity to buy Aircom. It was inherited by his son, and his son wasn't really active in Aircom at all. And he came in and he was running Aircom, and it was kind of clear that he's a little bit of a fish out of water. And it was really good that Aircom was had some awesome people working at Aircom because we were very self-managed. And you know, folks like Sean. Sean's building his own business, just like I'm building my own business in Aircom, in your sales role. You have a territory, you need to build it up, and away you go. Corey, looking after the internal things at Aircom. He was inside sales, just working with the production folks. We were able to hang on to it, and no one really knew outside of Aircom that we lost the owner. However, we about a month later we went to the son of the owner and said, "Hey, what are your intentions here? Because we don't know what's going on. We don't know if we're going to get laid off or the company's going to fold. We really don't know." And he says, "I'd like to sell, and I want to sell it to you guys." And it's like, okay, cool, but I want to be a partner. And I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. But long story short, we were able to close on buying Aircom. It took 365 days to the day. So in May of 2011, Sean, Corey, and Rick received an email. Congratulations, guys, everything's done. And we're just working away, doing our regular jobs. And it's so anticlimactic. And you think when you buy a company that this is all, fireworks are going to go off and excitement. And there's going to be a big party. But no, it was just an email, probably around 10:30 on a Wednesday morning. And we are now owners of a company. And the funny thing is, we had to change the locks, and we had no idea how to pay the locksmith. We have no money. I don't know how does this work? I don't have a bank account yet, like officially. Like it was the most bizarre situation. And it's like, well, I don't even have a credit card. How do I pay this person? You lose track of regular everyday normal transactions, and it's like, well, it's quite simple. You know you give them a PO, and by the time everything's all settled, you have to pay them money in 30 days or 60 days, whatever the terms are. Well, then that's how it works. Oh, okay, good. And you start learning real fast.
Yeah, I was gonna say the email was anticlimactic in so many ways, but then the next day when you were having to figure things out over the next few months, that's where the learning curve came, right?
Well,
So this is a question that we haven't talked about at all, but what was that process like? How out of water did you feel? Three people, none of you had owned a business before, purchasing this business. How far out of water did you all get?
well, how did we all feel, number one? And then I'll talk to or speak to how did we get to this position? How did we feel? Well, let's be honest. We're awesome sales guys. We know how business goes. This is easy, and how many salespeople are out there looking at their business owners or their management going, man alive, if I could only do this, I'd show you guys how this works. So overconfident, that's definitely a feeling. The other feeling is, wow, we've done this. This is cool,
Mm.
awesome. Um, there was a really interesting feeling, in my personal opinion, of the chains being let go. I don't feel the old owner, and I speak to the old owner in the utmost respect. When I say the old owner, it's not like I don't have respect for him. I do. I have a lot of respect for him. He was just in a very different position in life than I was at that time. So what he's trying to do versus what I'm trying to do are two different things. I think he had a tiger by the tail, and he had these young, aggressive guys who want to build business, and he kind of wanted to keep his business more manageable. And I really did feel like the chains have been let go. We can just do all these things that we wanted to do, and it was a pretty exciting time because man alive did our sales rock skyrocket. Like it was a hockey stick. We just went straight up. And now the situation we got into, well, here we're three guys who think we know how to run a company, and we have no real knowledge of how to run a company. There's accounting things that you have to take care of. There's all sorts of processes. Are you doing the right things? Is there any gray area? What kind of skeletons are in the closet that you're not aware of, even though you do due diligence? There's a whole bunch of things that you need to learn. And one of the biggest things that we learned was we have no idea how to hire people. We think we do. We interview people because you need people. When you start to hire like the sales skyrocket and production is behind all this, you need people. And people are your greatest asset, as people say all the time. But you need good people to do a good job. And when you go and hire people, you look at their resume checks all the boxes, you bring them in and you have an interview. Ah, they seem a little bit odd and weird. No, I think we're going to go on to the next guy. And then the next guy you interview him, oh, he seems like a great guy and awesome. Yeah, great. Oh, high fives. All right, we're going to hire this dude. And you hired him. And then 6 months later, they leave. Hmm. Well, that's weird. I thought that would be a good one, but okay, let's try it again. And we found ourselves in this situation where we were burning through inside sales folks. We were burning through a few people on the production, and we can't figure it out. That's probably something to talk about a little bit later when we talk about traits more specifically. But we were broken. We thought we knew what we were doing, and clearly we didn't. And that's just one example. There's all sorts of examples when you go into business for yourself and you've just bought this multi-million dollar company and you've put your houses up as collateral. If this doesn't go well, it's not going to be, and it was put to us in this very specific way. It's not going to be ugly if this doesn't go well. It's going to be like 8 or 9 shades of ugly if this doesn't go well. So you three bozos better make sure you figure this out quick because if you don't, you're going to be in a world of hurt. So yeah, business life is a pretty interesting life.
It's
Uh,
it's fascinating. I was editing another interview that I did just a couple of days ago, and the gentleman was talking about the difference getting into other people's shoes, stepping into other people's shoes, because so much of the time we have this idea, and you talked about like these sales guys, they're young and driven, and let's take down the world. This is going to be easy. We already know how the business runs. We've been here a while. And it's a very different story from the other perspective. I think that so much of the time we look at business owners, and media is horrific to business owners. The media shows business owners as these selfish, greedy, awful human beings, and that's been around for a very long time. My experience has been different. My experience with business owners, I mean, there's good and bad in any industry, in any group of human beings you go to, any culture, any race, any religion, whatever, right? But what I found is that it takes so many unique skills to run a business that competent business owners tend to be fairly decent people overall because they have to be. If they're not decent people, they're not going to hold on to their people. They're not going to run a successful business. They need to be detailed enough at times. They need to think big picture at times. They're a very versatile group of human beings. And maybe I'll lead into the three amigos here a little bit because if you go through the traits profiles of the three amigos, you don't see three prototypical business owners. There's a bit of a mix, right? So maybe walk me through that process. So you've bought this company, you're excited, you're growing it, you got hockey stick growth, but you're starting to run into some problems. And where did that lead you? How did you deal with it specifically within you three? How did you figure out where each of your places were in this business?
well, at the very beginning, when we closed the company, or not close officially, but we're okay. This is happening. Uh, who's going to do what? Corey and Sean both looked at me and you're the president. I'm like, I don't want to be the president. You be the president. And it was kind of like picking the short straw. But at the time, with our culture being so bad, I'm a little more assertive than most people, and I think that they chose me just because they they figured I could be the best person for the position. So it's like, okay, let's do this. And so how we come across traits so that we can better understand each other It was through an exercise of Sean burning through some inside guys. And Sean was the sales manager. Sean is trying to hire new people all the time, and he's struggling. And so Mike with Concord and Sean somehow, and I don't know how, but they connected. And Mike came in and uh, and talked to Sean about the trades program and putting through all these applicants and getting them to fill out the traits profile system, 20 minutes online. And if you're trying to hire a sales guy, then the traits output should have a certain type of Z type of description on the dots, as an example. And the Z needs to point in a certain direction because we need someone who can ask for the business, is this, and this. And so we did that. Sean hires the first person under the new trait system. And he sits down with Mike and he talks about it. And Mike's like, I don't think you should hire this one. He goes, oh, I think this one's good. And Mike's like, I think this person's probably going to leave within about 6 months, 6 months to a year for sure. I don't know. I think I got this. And so yeah, Sean hired her, and this person left, just like Mike said. And then Sean says, "Okay, I'm willing to listen." And from that moment on, our hiring practices have changed significantly. Not as far as the nuts and bolts of it, but actually listening to the traits. Look at what's on the paper, understand what's on the paper, and how is this person going to excel, or how is this person not going to excel? Why are you going to have to manage the heck out of this person, or why you may not have to manage them whatsoever because they're a perfect fit for the role. There's all sorts of information that comes off of these trait sheets, but the key component is you have to listen to it. You have to understand it. You have to take it for what it is. And when you're hiring somebody, this isn't just like the only tool in your toolbox. You use it as one of the legs of a chair. And if you lost one leg of a chair, the chair is going to probably fall over or it's going to teeter. It's not going to be very stable. And that, in our perspective, that is the one thing that we need to make sure that we have in our workplace are solid four-legged chairs so that we don't have anyone tipping over. And the traits is just one of those legs. You have to have a good resume. You've got to have, all these different things. So when we look at the outputs of Sean, Corey, and Rick when it comes to the traits. Again, we're novice. We don't know anything about how to read these things. Maybe I'll back up just one little bit. When Mike came in, he says, "Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's let's put one particular person in your company through the traits profile, and uh, I'll tell you what I see when we pop out." And so we picked the most unique person in our company as a bit of well, let's see if he can figure this one out. And I'm not kidding you, Mark. When he came back and he sat in front of us and he says, "Let me guess. When you walk into this person's office, this is their first reaction." And we're like, "Yeah, weird." And Mike had never even spoke to this person before, never met them, never talked to him on the phone, nothing. And he sat there like as if he had a hand up this puppet and knew exactly how this person behaves, reacts. It was amazing. A little hair in the back of my neck stood up. And I'm like, okay, do us. And it's almost like a party trick after that. And so he did Corey, Rick, and Sean. And you're right. Corey, Rick, and Sean have very different profiles. And that probably ties into the success of Aircom and the success of our partnership is that we check our egos at the door. We really do. You have to have a big ego to be a business owner. It's just, that's just the way it is. You need to believe that you are almost invincible. You can do anything. We got to get this done. We will be successful. All this sort of drive and everything. You need to have this ego. But in my opinion, the key is dropping the ego at the door. Sean, I've learned so much from Sean as an individual. I've learned so much from Corey as an individual. I and I know that I've had an influence on Sean and Corey on some with some of my traits. And you take the good traits and you maybe get a little bit more focused on your bad traits or the 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 traits that are, what do you call them? Strengths overdone or something along those lines. And forgive me, I'm not real big on the terminology, but the strengths overdone, I think is how you say it. But I'm a very, very, very assertive person, and I can turn people off really easy. But I'm also very good at reading the situation, reading I'm a results focused person. So if I'm going to go in there and I'm going to try and sell something to somebody, I need to um, take, take my aggressive side down a little bit, especially if the person is a little bit more soft spoken. I need to just look, be very aware of how I come across because I need to become that person's friend in a very short period of time. And that person needs to relate to me. Or when I walk away from that scenario, they need to say, you know what? I like that Rick guy. I don't know what it is about him, but I like him. And um, so one revelation that I had when you look at Corey, Rick, and Sean as example, I'm not like Sean. I'm not like Corey. I'm not like Mark. Most people that I come across are not like me. And that's the same with anybody. Sean can say exactly the same thing. So we're like maybe 25% of the people in the population are going to be just like us. And the traits, when you realize that these people are just not different from you, they've got some amazing skill sets that you can lean on. And you can really focus on driving that particular person. If you look at them as a V8 engine, is this person firing on all eight cylinders? Are they in a role that they can excel at? Are they given the freedom to do whatever it is they need to do to excel at? Or are they running at like a four cylinder, kind of trudging along, not doing the most that they could possibly do? And so the amigos get out of each other's way. I'm really good at certain things. Sean is really good at certain things, and Corey is really good at certain things, and we allow ourselves to do those things. So it's almost like being one single business owner on steroids.
Yeah, you've dropped so many nuggets here, Rick, and I'm going to try to remember to go back to
Yeah.
some of these. You've given us a couple of analogies that are really useful, but where you finished off there was talking about how you get out of each other's way and you allow each person to enjoy their strengths. For every strength that any human being has ever had in the history of humanity, they have a concurring weakness. That's a fact, right? If
Hmm.
somebody is super 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 assertive, they're not going to be the typical accommodating. Hey, let's always work together because they have the best answer and they know they have the best answer in their head, right? Whether they do or not, correct? So the fact is that if we focus on the weaknesses, we're just all going to be miserable all the time. If we
Hmm.
focus on the strengths and get out of each other's way and allow people to fire on all eight cylinders, the analogy you gave, that's where people are most efficient. I know that this is not the way an engine works, but if somebody was only utilizing three or four cylinders out of eight, what would happen is a bunch of crud would get into the other four or five cylinders. That's what would
Hmm.
happen, right? If that's how life worked, and that's what happens in business all the time. Is that people are picking up all this crap, and that crap weighs down, and we start to put that on. Oh well, this is a bad company, or I've got a bad manager, I've got a bad whatever. And yes, there's blame to go around there because we all need to learn to. I mean, you guys communicate on a completely different level with the scoring that you talked about in Kananaskis, but I like that idea of get out of each other's way and allow somebody to to work in their area of genius, work in their area of strength so much. Now, you talked about another analogy that I want to go back to for a second. You talked about the four legs of a chair. And I think I love analogies because they're such great word pictures. They can help in so many ways understand something. Now, we had talked before, because you'd used this analogy before. You said the four legs of a chair. One is the experience that you can see on a resume. The second is a skill set that you can see on a resume. The third is how somebody looks and sounds, and that's what you pick up in an interview. So the three legs of the chair are experience, skills, and how somebody comes across in an interview. And that is enough. Honestly, it's enough to hold up a chair,
Hmm.
as long as you don't lean one way, right?
Correct. Yep.
If you lean one way, though, you are going to fall, and notice that there is weakness here. So it's not that interviews and resumes shouldn't be counted on. It's not that these things are not valuable. It's that there's still something missing. So maybe fill in your words, what is that missing piece? What is the fourth leg? What is, I mean, we're talking about the tool traits right now, but what is the essence of that? What is it giving a company?
So when we look at that traits as that one leg that we use as a tool in the interview process, let's just say hypothetically we have a really cool opening at Aircom. Uh, again, I'm proud to say that we do have people waiting in the wings that want to come to and work at Aircom, which is such a blessing. But that person also has to be the right fit. And so let's say we put out a job posting, and let's say we get 300 applicants. We already know that for this particular role, let's just focus on accounting. Accounting, their profile should look like this.
Mhm.
And the person who is applying for the job, they have to fill out the traits profile on, there's a link on our website, and they have to go and do that. Number one, if they don't do that, well, they can't follow simple instruction. So they're not even, if you send in a resume, we're not even looking at it. Sorry. It's just, sorry. We might be missing out on a great person. Who knows? But at the very least, if they're not willing to take 15, 20 minutes, then we're not willing to um, bring them into our fold. And so of those 300 applicants, let's say 295 of them have applied and they have filled out the traits. And we're looking for a very specific dots on the paper because this is exactly what we want. We want someone who, A, B, C, and D. And the computer will pop up the top 5 people out of those 295 people. Now, that in itself sells me on using traits. It just like you can call through 295 good applicants and pop up the 5 that fit the role perfectly. That's amazing. So we will bring those 5 in for an interview. And then we already know that these people are genetically human like engineered to do this job. This is the perfect job for them. Let's just say they don't like accountants sometimes like to get their nose down into the numbers, and they don't like interruptions, and so they're not going to be super social people because they want to drive into that. Um, if we want to hire someone like that, we want someone who's going to be super high detailed and looking at the numbers. We want to hire someone like that. And so if you're someone who is like this, you're going to come to Aircom and you are going to be very happy because we're building you a perfect environment. Um, so
I'm thinking about
I
how well prepared you are for these interviews, because you're going into this interview saying, I don't want this person to be gregarious. If they're gregarious, it's the wrong person. I want somebody who is just a little bit muted. I want somebody who, when I ask them a detailed question, their eyes light up a little bit. That's what excites them. It's a different preparation for an interview, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can definitely tailor your questions to fit this person. And remember, we were talking about making them feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's an interview process, I want them to walk away from that interview going, "Wow, I really like those guys. That was a neat." Because you're actually asking, like my son, who is 24 years old, he had an interview yesterday for a computer company, and he's a software dude. I don't even understand that stuff, but um, I tried to prepare him, and I'm like, you know what, Tyler, they may ask you, give me an example of a challenging situation that you worked your way through, or what is a goal you're working towards? These are all canned questions.
Yeah.
Why would I ask someone who doesn't, like they don't want to answer that question. I
Right.
want to ask them something that's more tailored to them as a person, them as a role in our company. Maybe, it's like, do you like camping? And then shut up and let them answer the question. And that person who's not super social, they might say, yeah, I love camping. Oh, what is it about camping you like? Well, I can be by myself.
Yes.
Kind of makes sense, right?
Right. And then that's kind of what you're pulling out in those interviews now, right?
Yeah, you're really trying to figure out whether this person is truly the person that we're popping up on the paper
Hmm.
with traits. Um, Sometimes we get super lucky. The last accountant that we hired at Aircom, coincidentally, what an awesome dude. What a great guy. And uh, you know what he does in his spare time? He builds Lego. He's built a Lego radio, and which is just so cool. But he fits the role perfectly. And uh, traits help us get there. And if we didn't adopt traits, we would still be hiring people using three legs of a chair. We probably would be having to manage them way more than we need to or should be. They themselves are probably going to be exhausted at the end of the day because we may have hired someone who likes to talk more than crunch the numbers, and they're leaving their office and going around the office and then enter into, which is fine. I mean, we don't, there's no problem with that. But they're just exhausted all the time because really to get their job done, they need to stay in their office and get those numbers crunched. Um, we don't want that. We want
Hmm.
people that are going to be happy. They want to go home happy. Because let's face it, when you go home at the end of the day, you probably complain to your better half about, how crazy your workplace is and this person and that person. And so we're getting someone for 8 hours, but really we're occupying probably 12 hours of someone's day if they're not happy. And then their their spouse is going to be unhappy with us. And then we love to do things at Aircom where we bring the families together. So we take our entire company out to Jasper, for example, and we put them up at the Becker chalets, and all the whole family is involved and invited. And the only thing we ask of them is to come have supper with us on Saturday. And it's not team building and rah rah rah, but what's happened over the years, which is really cool, is that the camaraderie when you have bad culture, everyone sticks to themselves and they stay in their little cottage and they don't talk. I mean, one of my trips in the past, I took my son and we brought three of the Born Identity movies, and we sat. We're in Jasper, one of the prettiest places we have in Alberta, and my son and I sat in the cottage watching movies because really didn't want to talk to anybody, which kind of makes sense because I'm not the super social person that you would think would be as a salesperson. But it's awesome to see our company flourish in Jasper with all the family, all the kids. I think Sean said we had was it 98 people? It was incredible to see how many people we had at our last function in Jasper. Is awesome.
Yeah, it was one
We're
thing
only
that
33 employees strong, so there's a lot of family that comes
and
and they all have fun.
yeah, it means that people are enjoying it. People are looking forward to it. People are saying, "Hey, this is a worthwhile experience." You don't have to come to a bunch of meetings. We can hang out, and whether it's Born Identity movies or walking out in some gorge or canyon, we can do what works for us. Okay,
Do
so
whatever you want.
you're getting into culture now, and this I believe we need to sit for a little bit
Okay.
because you talked about how culture was a struggle when you first purchased the company, when you first went into the company. What was it like? You've talked about where you're at now a little bit. What did you need to do to get to where you are?
Well, fundamentally, when I wanted to start my own company, my dream was I want to build a very successful instrumentation company.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to create a place where people wanted to come and work.
Mm-hmm.
Because so many times you wake up in the morning and you struggle and you drag yourself into work and whatever, you get through your workday and then you go home and, whatever. I think that that's pretty common. But I want someone who wants to come in and work and is excited about their job and they've given their empowerment to make decisions and make the place better. Um, I want good culture in my company because I've always wanted to build the coolest company that anyone could ever come and work at. That's always been my dream. And so when I joined Aircom, just in the pursuit of teaching myself how to build business and whether or not I can do it, I got to see something, and this is where this might sound a little negative, but um, after a while, I really started to believe that here I am, I'm working at the U of A. And the U of A is the University of Aircom.
Okay.
I got to see a lot of things that are not great things that I would want to bring into my company through culture and keeping people that are bad for culture in the company just because you're good friends with them as an example.
Yeah, give
uh,
sorry, give some examples of this, Rick, because I mean, don't give names or anything, but give some examples of type of personalities or people that were coming across in the wrong way or were dissatisfied for whatever reason. What did you see when you were first there?
sure, yeah, there's um, when you work in an environment that you feel is pretty good, and then you start seeing the odd thing here and there, and you kind of question and say, that's kind of odd. And one story I can talk to that really speaks to me is, uh, there was a mental health issue going on in with one particular person, and I can recognize that because I have some personal experience in that world. And so I went to uh, my boss about this, and it's like, I just heard something and saw something that I don't really feel comfortable with. Ah, no, that's whatever. Don't worry about it. That's nothing. And I'm like, that's interesting. Uh, okay. And then I let it go. And then you kind of see it again. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna go to the owner about this because this isn't right. And this person is not being treated very well. And sure enough, brought it up and nothing came of it. And after a while, that particular person went on a medical leave. And knowing from past experience in family that when you leave a workplace due to a mental illness, it's extremely hard to come back. And so you get yourself healthy and you come back. And when you do come back, that particular person is going to think that there's all these targets on them. Everyone's looking at them. Everyone's like, what was wrong? What would I, and they get inundated with questions, and it doesn't help them get back into a normal environment. But that particular person never did come back, which is sad. Um, those are culture issues. If you see something going wrong, you should always say something, in my personal opinion. Bring it up, and hopefully the management's going to do something about it. Look into it. They don't have to be reactive immediately, but they need to be aware and should be aware. And the culture, that's just one example. I had one guy tell one of my customers, "Oh yeah, no, we're late because the machinist broke his arm." And I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "Well, I didn't hear about this." And I go and ask, and oh no, 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 he's fine. It's just I needed to buy some time. And I'm like, oh my Lord, dude, let's tell them the truth. Like, why would we lie to someone? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like, we don't have to be perfect all the time.
Well,
And
and
we
this,
don't have to be on time every time.
yeah, this starts to affect so many other areas of the business. Like you said, you're bringing something up. The person is suffering from mental health, but because you're bringing it up and not seeing anything done, and other people are seeing that nothing is done, that starts to affect everyone. And like, does somebody have our backs? Am I going to be
Hmm.
okay? Do I need to hide something if something does go wrong? Which comes back to something that you said. I picked this out when you talked about. Oh, you were talking about communication and that score that you got in Kananaskis. Something that really jumped out to me, Rick, was that you talked about openness and honesty. Honesty is different than openness. And I meet a lot of business owners who say, be honest, but don't be honest. Don't be open. Don't share everything that's happening in the company. Don't share why you're doing everything. That's for us to know. Employees don't need to know that stuff. And you guys, as far as I understand from speaking with you and Sean, are the exact opposite, right? Like share
Exact
share
opposite.
share what you believe the impact has been in being completely open and being available to everyone working in the company.
You would be absolutely blown away by what we share with our employees. The the quarterly general meetings, we have all the numbers. Like that, the balance sheet is up there. It's for everyone to see. They can, it doesn't get granular to see what each individual person makes or something along those lines, but it shows how much we spent on wages, and it's right there. And anyone, our profit sharing, we have a profit sharing program that back in the old days, we kind of joke about it. It was just some guy behind a curtain kind of pulling links and levers and stuff, and it didn't make any sense whatsoever. And it creates doubt. It's like, well, is this even real? The way we do profit sharing, it's a formula. It's based on EBITDA. It's all the numbers are there. And Sean puts on after every single one of our quarterly meetings, and we've been doing this for years. Sean puts on a seminar. Anybody who wants to come in and understand how the profit sharing works, we teach you how to calculate it yourself, and you know exactly how it works. And this is, to me, why on earth would you hide anything? Like, why would you hide anything? People hide things when they're being dishonest, or they're hiding things because they feel oversharing might expose something. And that exposing something is something that they're trying to hide, in my personal opinion. Um, why hide anything? Why not just explain how everything works? I chuckled at the beginning of this because I look at what we share with people, and I just think to myself, man, Sean, because Sean does the presentations typically. I do some ESG stuff, but Sean basically does the presentations to our folks as the president of the company. And I used to do it when I was a president. And there's a little story there too I want to come back to. But I kind of chuckle. It's like, man, you're boring the heck out of these people. You remember going back to the numbers? The accountants are probably looking at it. Well, they know all the numbers anyways. It doesn't matter, but they love it because it's lots of numbers and stuff, and they can crunch all the numbers they want. Where someone who's in production who makes RTDs or weld something, they don't care about the numbers. It's like, I just find it so surprising when you're trying, and we're only 33 people deep or 36 people deep. When you're presenting to 36 people, you've got every color of the rainbow in there, and you can't appease everybody. Some people are going to be super bored. Some people are going to be kind of excited, and some people are just waiting for lunch to be served. It's like, when's lunch? Geez, I'm getting hungry. Um, yeah, we share a lot at Aircom.
You referenced a story that you were going to share.
Yeah, when we talk about culture and fear in the workplace and uncertainty, my very first uh, general meeting as the new president of Aircom, I was the acting president of Aircom, but now I'm the new president. This is official. We are taking over. The Amigos are buying Aircom, and we're announcing this to the entire company. We had one lady named Tina, and Tina, she had a nickname called Spar Tina because Tina is someone who comes in and she works on this one company's product every day. Ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk. Same thing every single day. I would never be able to do that job. I would quit within a week. I'm sure of it. I just can't. I'm not built that way. But the beauty of all these different types of people is that we have someone in our world that loves doing that. And Tina loved doing that. And Tina, she was in the front row of everyone staring at me. And I'm saying, well, guys, things are going to change a little bit. And Corey, Rick, and Sean, who we weren't really known as the amigos with our people yet, we are successfully uh, the new owners of Aircom. And her eyeballs, they became so big. They were like saucers. And I'm not kidding you, the biggest eyeballs I've ever seen on anyone. She was horrified, absolutely horrified. So much so that I'm pretty good on my feet. Man, I lost my words. Like it freaked me out. It's like, and at that moment was when I realized, holy crap, these are human beings. These aren't employees.
Yes.
These are human beings with fear, with bills to pay, with someone sick at home with cancer or whatever their scenario is. These are people.
Mm.
And when you start looking at them as people versus employees, that's when culture starts to grow. And it was my biggest job. And that's what basically why I think Corey and Sean put me in the president's role was I had a massive undertaking of working on our culture. And there was lots of work to do. Sean and Corey doing their jobs behind the scenes. I'm doing my thing, but um, creating creating the trust in the building. Uh, you needed to do that because if there's no trust, I mean, you look at Tina's eyeballs. There was no trust there. There was no faith in Rick. There was no, she was horrified. And
Change equals bad is what was going through her mind,
yeah,
right?
change equals bad. And she's probably going to lose her job or this or that. Another funny story about Tina is Tina left Aircom twice. Twice. That person left Aircom twice and went on to different roles. And she came back and she's like, I am never leaving this company ever again.
So she came back
And
twice as well.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So she came back for a third time.
Yeah.
And yeah, bless her heart. Unfortunately, Tina, a few years ago, she became very ill and
Mm.
she passed away. And our Christmas party, we all had a toast to Tina, and it was tequila for Tina. And so we had a few tequilas for Spartina, but I'll never forget that. All my life, till the day I die, uh, seeing Tina's eyeballs, the size of saucers, and absolutely horrified. And I have a responsibility for Tina and every other person in the building and their spouse and their kids to do the right thing at Aircom. And the Aircom way is a culmination of years of doing the right thing for our people and for our customers. The customer, that's an easy thing. You do the right thing for the customer. That's simple. Um, Most of our customers' needs are the same. They need a temperature sensor or pressure product of some sorts, and they need it to be high quality, and it needs to meet all the regulations and the regulatory environment that we live in. And that's simple. It's the people and the culture. That's where a lot of work needs to go in, and it needs to continue every single day.
We've talked about a lot of different things. One term that you've used a number of times is the Aircom way, or the U of A, as you referred to it at one point in time as well. But you talked about culture and this openness and this honesty and treating people as people, and thinking about how does this impact others, how does this affect others, how can we create an environment where people feel safe, where people feel encouraged, when they feel part of what they're doing. So maybe share just really quickly, and we can end with this. What what are the biggest changes that you've seen with people? Again, if you want to share a couple of stories, it's fine. But what are the biggest changes you've seen? I know that this has also affected your bottom line in the company, but what are the ways that you've seen this change for individuals in the company?
Very interesting question. Because I have some, I do have one very harsh example. Um, I'm not going to share it whether or not it's the right thing to share or not, but we had one individual in our company. It's always been there. Um, very, very harsh person. Um, very protected by the old owner. Uh, kind of like they're part of the original nucleus,
Old,
and
old boys club or whatever.
yeah, like the old boys club. And this particular person would burn through people uh, on a regular basis because just really harsh, just not really considering people's feelings and this and that. And I actually got involved because I would have to talk to the people that worked under this particular person on a regular basis. And I was an ear for them on a regular basis. And so when we took the company on and we bought the company, now we own this thing, we need to make a decision. Do we keep these people or do we let these people go? Because we want to build a great company and we can't have the wrong people in the company. That's just going to drag it back. We're not going to. So I had to sit down in front of this person, and this person's probably at least 10 years my senior at least. And I had to tell them, it's like, you are a very nasty person. And they were really shocked, really taken aback. And I'm like, you burn through people because you are a nasty person. And if you want to be part of this company moving forward, you need to start working on yourself. And at first, they were really taken aback, like, oh my God, no one's ever spoke to me like this ever before, and yada yada yada. And which is whatever. I had to take the bullet, right? I was the guy, the president, whatever. I needed to stop this cycle of we'll call it abuse, And so that particular individual came back the next day after they had the opportunity to analyze, and they had a story as to why these people leave. And it was, well, that's just the way it works. This is the cycle. This is, they don't stay in positions like this for very long, and yada yada. And so they came back and defended their actions, which is, that's okay. Humans want to, no one wants to be wrong. Everybody wants to be right. But I had to say, okay, I understand that. I understand your perspective. However, it stops today, and you need to change. And that person, I am so proud of that person in the change that they have done and worked on. Um, it's very different, that person inside the building, than it was when I, I was introduced by this person to a new employee one time as a outside sales slacker. That was my official role. And it's like, wow, I just shake my head sometimes. But no, that's a massive change that we've seen in that particular person, which I'm very proud of them in the way that they've recognized that they listened, and yeah, it's amazing.
It,
It's
it, it
just a
it's rare
change.
to meet somebody who can take a bullet
Oh,
and learn and grow from it rather than just crumple or run away or blame others forever or whatever. So it speaks a lot to their character as well. In that, I think about so many different scenarios that this is affecting. It's affecting the workplace environment. It's
Hmm.
affecting their team and the people that work around them. And you've got more continuity. You've got people sticking around longer. You've got people with more trust. People can know that they don't have to burn out within 2 3 weeks, 2 3 months, whatever it was, right?
Hmm.
So I think about all of the benefits there, and then even how do people talk about each other at, in, around business? That changes if there's a significant change in an individual. I think I use a really personal example. My dad was an extremely harsh person. Like I laugh sometimes thinking about people, and like I think we throw the term abuse around probably. Sometimes we hear it too much now, right? Like
Yeah.
my hangnail is not an abusive situation. The weather's not abusing me right now. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
that's a pendulum swing because it was so abusive before in certain situations. So we had to bring awareness to that. And the change that I've seen in my father and how he's I mean, people say he's mellowed or whatever, but that takes away the responsibility that he's taken on to learn and grow as a human being. And when we say he's just mellowed, I think that it does a disservice to those who are changing. And it took individuals in my family to confront and to take bullets at times and to go, what do we need to do here? How do we help this person? My dad is a beautiful human being. And we see more of that now because
Hmm.
of the work that he's done personally, and we have more respect for him because of the work he's done personally. And that's it's maybe where I'll leave this, is that the impression I get, Rick, when I think about Aircom and I think all these changes you made, and I think so many business owners might listen to this podcast episode and say, like, oh, come on, this is a bunch of like airy fairy BS. Like they're yeah, everyone's happy and they've got a stack of cards and yada yada yada.
Hmm.
Like to grow a business, you got to ask harder questions. And what I'm left coming from this is it's possible. It's possible to have a community that works and feels like community, because like you said, it's taking up 8, 10, 12 hours of somebody's day depending on how it's going in the background for them. This takes up a lot of our time and energy in our lives, our careers. And if that can be done in community, we are so thirsty and hungry as human beings for community, that if our workplace can satisfy some of those needs in us, it is something that it allows us to be ourselves. It allows us to be more efficient. It allows us to work with less stress. So there's less latency. We're getting more done. Like there are so many positive benefits in my mind. And I really appreciate you coming on here and doing this with me. I think that, again, we're talking about higher performing organizations. And my guess is that most people will be like, well, culture is not about higher performance, at least not what Rick was talking about. And I'm going, I know your business a little bit because I've heard from Sean, I've heard from you, I've heard from Mike, and legitimately, your business is a higher performing business, and you are saying, as one of the leaders of your organization, it's because of culture. It's not that culture is just like we're throwing it at the end, throwing the dog a bone or anything. This is legitimately something that has made your company phenomenal. Is that accurate?
I would say that's very accurate. And if I can maybe toss a little twist in for those other business owners who may be listening to this and saying, that's a bunch of whatever. Um, if and when we do sell Aircom one day, the people who buy Aircom will be purchasing the Aircom way. And I truly believe that 100%. And so for those people listening, taking in the podcast, what is the Aircom way? How do you buy an Aircom way? And that's what separates us from somebody else who does exactly the same thing that we do at Aircom. It's the Aircom way.
Mm,
And it's a tagline, sure, but there's a whole community of people working in the same direction, living and breathing the Aircom way.
mm-hmm.
And it's so cool. I
Yeah.
think it's just so cool.
Again, to reemphasize what came out of this interview, these guys were not handed a perfect company on a silver platter. That did not happen. They made the company they now have One thing that Rick talked a lot about was how Traits has been fantastic for hiring, but does a lot more than simply help with hiring. This helps have conversations with employees to find best fits, and it helps with lateral moves in an organization. It helps with org design or redesign. It helps with strat planning. This needs to be put to use in far more ways if it's simply seen as a hiring tool, though it excels at helping with hiring. Sometimes knowing how inadequate we are helps to create something better. I get the sense with Rick that there's not a lot of hubris. There's not a lot of overconfidence with this. Yes, they bit off maybe more than they figure they might have been able to chew right at the beginning, but often we know what we know, but we don't always know what we don't know. And that's a big batch of ignorance on this planet for each one of us. There's so much more that we don't know than what we know. And with Rick and the other two amigos, these guys made things happen. They worked at it. They figured things out, and they were willing to learn and grow through the process, which I believe is something that's become a theme, even in the last, I would say, 5 or 6 podcast interviews, that consistently people are saying those who are the best leaders are those who are willing to learn, willing to grow, which creates better companies. Rick talked about how different the three amigos are and how this is a strength. We often surround ourselves with people who are like us rather than different in the right ways. These guys have learned to get out of each other's way, and I really appreciated about this interview. Something else that stood out was the 4 legs of a chair analogy. Again, 3 legs hold up a chair. That's true. But how do we create a strong chair for our company with each employee we hire? And what he talked about here, and then what came out, was that he gets to know people rather than simply asking them a few interview questions. Getting to know people in a unique way makes a massive difference. I know this from when I've looked for investors for different companies that I've started or real estate deals that I've done. It is so much better to get to know somebody. I remember even renting to tenants. If I get to know somebody, it tells me so much more about them. And if I'm able to pay attention to what somebody is saying, I get a better feel for tenants than the average landlord does. What openness and honesty did for this company culture was outstanding. They do a lot of things wrong in their company and have had success because of it. Another thing that I appreciated, what difference does this make because they are smaller? And that's something that we didn't get into a lot, or at all really, but I'm kind of curious about that after the interview. Is thinking about, okay, they've got 36 employees. What difference does it make in how they're communicating and creating culture, company culture? What difference would it be if you had 5,000 employees or 20,000 employees, or how would that work out? That's just a question that I have linger in my head. I didn't ask Rick this question, but I'm also curious about how much change took place because of how negative the culture was beforehand. When people are used to a certain way of doing things, and it's jarring how much change there is in the right way, my guess is that helps along with change. I had an experience taking over one business where there was a lot of negativity initially. Most people left. I think about 85% of our employees left within the first 2 weeks of taking this over. It wasn't a large company, but very quickly, those who stayed, when we asked them later about what was going on, they said we were terrified just because it was a frustrating situation in the beginning. And very quickly, we started to realize you guys are different. And so then that initial risk of staying for the first month turned out to be something that we thought was great, and we stuck around. And so I'm curious about how that works as well. Again, the leadership at Aircom deeply cares about their employees, and Aircom's employees fully understand this. And that comes across with a lot of leaders that I'm talking about, especially first-generation leaders who have built things from scratch and deeply care about employees and how everything works. Know everybody by name. That's a difficult thing to do as organizations grow and there's more division of labor and in more org design. But I was curious about that, fascinated with it. It's fun to hear companies that truly invest in their employees in a completely different way. We all do this, I'm sure, and any good business leader does this, but we do it in different ways. And it was great to have Rick's perspective on this. Thank you again, Rick, if you're listening to this one more time. It was wonderful to have Sean on here a while back near the beginning of these podcasts. it was great to have you on. We'll see when we can get the third amigo on here at some point in time. But thank you for this. I will put a reference to the show notes or in the show notes for Sean's interview as well if you want to listen to one of the other amigos here, which was also a fun interview. Enjoy your day. Wherever this finds you, continue to learn, continue to grow, become a better leader as time goes on, and use the tools at your disposal to grow your company in the right ways.